You know, the first time I came, we talked about, you know, the Trinity, right? Is God a Trinity? Why do we believe that? So on and so forth, right? And then we've covered like a number of other topics like
the chair.
What was that?
No, I'm telling you who that chair.
Oh, okay, yeah. Very small. All right, so you know, kind of lean, like over lean. You know, like, does Jesus exist? I mean, so did Jesus exist? You know, did the resurrection really happen? You know, is Christianity the white man's religion? So, if you recall, as we're kind of tackling those different questions, we primarily dealt with it from like a historical standpoint, with the exception of the Trinity question. We dealt with Scripture. We got into it. The Scripture says such and such. This is why we believe Christianity is the Trinity, and so forth, right? You know, with these other questions, they're history-based questions, right? Did Jesus exist or not? It's kind of like, you know, did he or didn't? You know, did the resurrection happen or not? You know, what happened in the past? So in order to answer those kind of questions, we dealt with, you know, we went to ancient sources like, you know, Tacitus. Actually, that reminds me, I should have handed this out first. I actually have notes for y'all, which kind of, I think helped a little bit. Definitely. You know what I'm saying?
Visual learning.
Yeah. Well, this is one of those things, I'm trying to incorporate more visuals as I teach, because I'm the same way. I think that it helps, you know, me, it helps other people. So, yeah, so, you know, as we tackle, say, for example, you know, did Jesus exist? You know, we talked about, like, Tacitus. You know, we talked about Josephus. We went to those ancient sources that mention Christ, you know, outside the Bible, and even talked about some of the biblical texts, and pulled those as kind of our evidence toward answering the question, did Jesus exist? Same thing with, you know, the resurrection. You know, anybody can kind of go back and check out that video, I think, you know, where we dealt with the minimal facts argument. You know, we talked about those 5 facts. You know, same thing with, you know, this Christianity, the white man's religion. We talked about, we went through about 2,000 years of, you know, ancient African Christianity on up to, you know, even the present. And we talked about, you know, Christianity, Egypt, Libya, Sudan, all those kind of things. So, you know, persons, places, and things. So that's kind of what we deal with to answer those kind of questions. However, you know, to kind of put it in perspective, right? You know, why do bad things happen to good people? That's a different type of question.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can't point to a date and say, well, such and such something, answer the question. You see what I'm saying? It's just a different animal. And so any, you know, branch of study that you get into, whether it's history, mathematics, you know, science, and in this case philosophy, you know, there's going to be different types of evidences that you're going to need to answer different types of questions, right? Now, unfortunately, I think what happens is many times as Christians, as we're defending the faith, we get really good at, say, this type of information. So let's say it's tools in our toolbox, let's put it that way. You know, we're okay with theology, we're okay with history. Philosophy is like, it's a little fuzzy. Like, you know, what's going on with it? You know, I think it's because it's just unfamiliar. I mean, when you think about, you know, coming up in school, I mean, nobody takes a philosophy course, you know, in like 3rd grade. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody doesn't, right? You know, you get history, math, you know, kind of your standards or whatever. Nobody takes philosophy unless maybe you get to college or something like that. You take an elective, right? So it's unfamiliar. And so I think that's the reason why people tend to kind of shy away from it, or it's just you know, it's kind of hard to get a grasp of. So that's what I was saying earlier. We don't want to necessarily just jump into the question of, you know, why bad things happen to people. Then we want to kind of put some tools in place to kind of get a handle on this, some of these things we're going to need to answer the bigger question, right? And along the way, like I said, I think we'll come across some things that will be helpful to us. You know, making sense so far?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so excuse like the mangled board here. It's like my kids got to it. You know, so it is what it is. You know.
Let me kids.
Yeah, actually, just so.
All right.
All right. So, why do bad things happen to good people? I call it a shapeshifter question, right? Because really it comes in a lot of different forms. Okay. So, you know, why do bad things happen to people? You know, where was God when such and such happened, right? You know, 9/11, maybe say a child or something like that. You know, recently, I don't know, well, everybody probably doesn't know, I do a show called the King Talks Podcast, right? So I'm running 2 podcasts right now, the Tru-ID podcast and the King Talks podcast. So recently, well, I say a couple months ago, I interviewed David Banner, you know, the rapper David Banner. So I ain't gonna lie,
That's dope.
that's pretty dope. I wasn't necessarily anyway. So I kind of knew what he was about, but it was like, man, that's what's up, So anyway, we're talking about Christianity. Actually, we're talking about his music. He just out of left field starts, throwing haymakers, against Christianity. And one of the things that he brought up was basically like, where was God when my grandma died? You know what I'm saying? So it's the same type of issue, just a different form. You know what I'm saying? So, God is so powerful. Why does he do X, Y, and Z? Or maybe a closer to home example, like guys, I always try to contextualize apologetics in terms of what we're dealing with, like the urban community. So, where was Jesus during slavery? That's like your brother black question. You know what I'm saying? Where was Jesus? Where is he at during slavery? Or why doesn't God free us from our oppression? It's all forms of the same umbrella issue. And philosophers call it the problem of evil. That's like the umbrella name for all these different types of questions and connections. Okay. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to try to pull some building blocks here. Make sure I stay on my notes. I can talk, man. I want to make sure I stay kind of on task here. But so like what we want to do, we want to pull from the different resources we have, which is going to include scripture. One thing I forgot to put up here is, now y'all know my handwriting is terrible. I can't draw. But, I don't know if y'all can see that there. Let's just say these are two streets right here. Terrible. But anyway, like this intersection, if this street is, one street is philosophy and one is theology, what I'm suggesting is that there's an intersection where we're taking the Word of God as a framework and applying it to some of these type of philosophical questions. That's our goal. We want to be faithful to the Bible. Not trying to put words in God's mouth. Yeah. We want to make sense of things. I'm saying from the biblical world. All right? Move right along. I want to pause here. Ask anybody have any questions. You can ask questions as we go. We're not trying to go to the end before we get the questions. If there's anything that's unclear, yeah.
About the David about the David what did you actually say to him and say about I know a lot yes, I too, like kind of like philosophy about inside. I was wondering
So y'all hear the question? Or?
Yeah. I was asking about what he said to David Banner when he was like the rule of God and the umbrella of God. So I just wondering what he said.
Right. Well, that actually leads us to my next point. So,
perfect
segue. Okay, so when people ask, I like straight that professor right now. Crazy. That's all right. So when people ask the question, this is so important. So important. When people ask questions like, why did that fatality? Or why didn't God step in the line on that cancer or something like that, right? What can happen is we can start giving the wrong answer to the right question, all right? Now, what I mean by this, let's break it down. So, when it comes to the problem, you're kind of dealing with like two halves of the same coin. One is emotion based, and then the other one we're just going to call reason, or we can say information or something like that. Now, as an analogy, let's use like use medication as an analogy, right? So, right at the beginning of January, I had to get a root canal. You know what I'm saying? My sister was like killing me. You know what I'm saying? Throbbing or whatever. I was being a knucklehead. I wasn't going to the dentist like I need to. And so, got to had to go to the dentist. Now, when I went to the dentist, he said, we got to give you 2 prescriptions, before we can, deal with the tooth, right? Number one, we got to give you some antibiotics, right, to, kill all the bacteria and all that kind of stuff. I know it's kind of gross, but anyway, we can kill all the bacteria. And then 2, I'm gonna give you, some Tylenol or I think Motrin, I think that I had for the headache. So we got one problem, and then there's 2 different medications. You know what I'm saying? Now, it's kind of like that with the problem with evil. If I had taken the Motrin to address the headache, then my headache would have been gone. But they still would not have been able to proceed, with the dental surgery because I would not have taken the other medication, which would have taken care of the bacteria. You see what I'm saying? You need 2 different. It's one problem, but there are 2 different types of medication needed. You see what I'm saying? Now, in the same kind of way, if somebody comes to you with one of these types of questions, they might not need the reason answer right then and there. They might need the emotion based answer. You see what I'm saying? Or response, I should say. there's different types of medications that are going to be needed for different times. So to your question, with David Banner, I didn't get a chance to go into it with him, but he said, man, where was God? Where was Jesus rather when my grandma died of cancer or something like that? He said it wouldn't have been the right time for me to get into all the philosophical workings. Well, brother, actually, when you think about it, evil is evidence for God. I mean, I could have gone there. I could have given him some really logical answer, but that really wouldn't have solved the problem. You see what I'm saying? Kind of like to get ahead of myself, but we're going to get into that later months. I think just kind of throw this in there. I think part of it is because when you're dealing with evil and suffering, there's always a personal element to it. And I would say even there's, I'm hesitant to say always, but often, if not always, there's an element in terms of our relationship with God. There's something there that's kind of housed in this issue of suffering, right? And so because there's this personal element, information is not always going to do the trick. It's not always going to do the trick. You see what I'm saying? Now, for example, I put them up the notes or something. Does anybody have a Bible? Anybody? Yeah, Bible study, man. Anybody got a Bible?
You already got one on your phone.
Yeah, I know, right?
I thought you were brought with all the stuff you brought.
I know, right?
Bibles included.
Can somebody get to Revelation 21, verse 1 through 4?
Does it matter what version?
No, not really.
Okay. I'm reading
Well, it's not like the Quran.
So 1 through 4?
What's that?
1 through 4?
Yeah, chapter 21, let's go 1 through 4.
Okay. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away.
Right. So now think about, it's talking about the end of days, right? We're at the end of the book. You know what I'm saying? Jesus come back, establish his kingdom, so on and so forth. Now, how is God addressing obviously the emotional turmoil, the sorrow and all this kind of stuff that we've gone through, kind of this inner period between Genesis and Revelation? He addresses it with himself. You know what I'm saying? It says the tabernacle of God is with men. It's talking about relationship with him. You know what I'm saying? It says he will wipe away every tear from their eye. Right? So when you think about how does God deal with the problem of evil, it's not purely information. It doesn't say he sits everybody down and explains all the inner workings of why this happened and why that happened. Now, he might do that. He might do that. But in that particular verse, it says he's going to come and wipe the tear from them. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at scripture from beginning to end, think about the book of Job. You know what I'm saying? Think about the book of Job. It's just so funny, man. Like, a preacher is going through in their personal life when they start preaching from Job. Job, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes. You don't see those books any other time.
All personal.
You know what I'm saying? Unless they just try to be like super faithful to the word, or they going through something like that. Man, Bishop's going through something. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. There's no reason for me to say it. But anyway, when you look at the book of Job, at the end of Job, Job has all of these questions and all this kind of stuff. And what happens at the end? God comes himself. Yeah. And intervenes. So that's how God does. So when it comes to the problem of evil, he's not distant. He doesn't just throw facts at you. Right. You know what I'm saying? There's a personal resolution to the problem of evil. Again, I don't want to get too far ahead, but I have to say that's the difference between this kind of starchy philosophy, you know what I'm saying, it's kind of cold and distant, just answering questions, versus Christian apologetics. We're not just giving people information or propositions. We're giving people a person. Yeah. I'm saying we're offering a person. Christianity is not just a set of ideas that's supposed to make you feel better. I'm saying, no, what we're trying to do is give you information to point you to a person that actually himself is the resolution of the issue. You know what I'm saying? So when we're talking about the problem of evil and suffering, you don't have a total or complete solution to the problem until you have Jesus. And all the fullness of what God brings into himself. You see what I'm saying? That makes sense. Would be so fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Yes, sir.
I was thinking, you said that because people can argue from their the human logic. It's helpful to know that the history of Jesus and historical facts. I mean, you said something about atheists. There's a good fact that they believe that Jesus actually existed and not God.
Oh, it's not there, right? Right. Well, even in my notes, man.
No, it's just
came wrong. My point was about to be in terms of like, no, it's good, man. In terms of the role, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's this personal element there, there's the emotional part. And so what we want to do with reason, it's kind of like a safety net in a sense. It kind of keeps us from, falling so far and keeps us in a position so that God can minister to us on a personal level. So that's kind of how I'm treating, you know what I'm saying, the problem. So that's why we're going to go through and put together some of the building blocks so we can answer the problem, right? So like you said earlier, I like the way you put it, there's really no one size fits all answer to the problem either. Because to some extent, there's always the personal element to the problem. And I can't give you information that's going to answer your particular issue. We're just wired that, when you think about children, you know what I'm saying, when a child is crying, something like that, and the mom comes and comforts them, like there's like chemicals that are released in the brain that cause that child to quiet down, even if they're in physical pain. I'm saying it's almost like a medicine in this. And that's kind of how God, when we're really struggling with pain, it's actually being in His presence, it's actually spending time in His Word. It's not just something we do just for the fun of it. That's actually the solution. So with that being said, so here's what we're going to do. Like I said, each and every time we meet, kind of over the next 3 months, I still want to give you something to kind of come away with, such that you can take it and say, if you're faced with this question tomorrow, you can at least have something to come back with.
Yeah.
Now, what I personally think is the most important point, and this really is my opinion, but as we're kind of addressing this, you want to take pressure off yourself in answering this question.
It's true,
right? Now, either you're asking these questions of yourself, trying to figure it out, or maybe somebody's throwing it at you.
That's a high pressure question.
One way or the other, you know what I'm saying? You're going to be facing. So you want to take the pressure off yourself. And how do we do that? Number one, if you're dealing with objections from somebody else, let's say, for example, I mentioned Brother Politer. Everybody may not know who he is, but he's basically a guy that's Pan-Africanist. Basically, Christianity is a white man's religion. He's always railing against Christianity, right? And so one of the things that he'll bring up is, where was Jesus during slavery? That might be something that he might say. And you might be on the internet, you might be scrolling through and see a meme or something like that, to that effect. How do you respond? Well, first of all, we deal with the problem of evil. It's not just a question that Christians have to answer. We're not the only ones who have to answer that question. I don't care what world you hold to, right? Everybody's got to have an answer for the problem, right? So, for example, if I'm dealing with Hebrew Israelites, they say, where was Jesus during, translating slavery? Well, where was your concept of God during translating slavery? You know what I'm saying? Like, we can have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Where was Horus during translating slavery? You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, somebody wants to come from, or let's say, maybe even if the person is an atheist, right? Where was Jesus during translating slavery? Okay, well, I hear you. But I'm going to give you my answer, and what I want to hear from your perspective. How do you account for the problem from an atheist perspective? You see what I'm saying? You don't want to take the ball and just put it in your court. You want to share the burden, so to speak, and have a conversation. The reason why you don't want to do it, because if you just take it on yourself, say if somebody's making an objection, then I don't care how good of an answer you give, they can always just be like, well, you know what I'm saying? Because you didn't convince me, all of a sudden now Christianity is false. You see what I'm saying? That's just not the way it works. So I kind of listed up here some of the broad, worldview, I guess you could say frameworks, whether it be atheism, theism, monotheism, such as Judaism, Christianity, Islam, monotheism right here. Polytheism is where people believe in a whole bunch of different gods, say like some versions of Hinduism, pantheism, and pan-atheism, and deism. Like, use kind of like your broad isms that most religions are going to fall under. If not all, like think. And so my whole point is, I don't care what category they fall under, they're going to have to answer the question just like you. Right? And so again, that takes a little bit of pressure off of us. Let's have a conversation, let's talk about it. Right? Now, with that being said, number two, just because somebody doesn't agree with me as to what my answer is for the problem, doesn't mean they're a problem. Right?
Yeah.
if I don't, just that I haven't convinced you, you know what I'm saying, it's like dead to rights,
Yeah, that's
you know what I'm saying, that my way is correct, doesn't mean that I'm incorrect. See what I'm saying? Again, this is not like history. See what I'm saying? So, for example, if somebody says that Jesus was created at the Council of Nicaea, that's something we see all the time, right? Well, I can go back to the manuscripts from Tertullian and his writings talking about Christ. I can go back to just actually the four Gospels, what they're digging to in the 2nd century or so. You know, I can point out these things. Okay, well, this fact, if I match it to your fact, obviously you're wrong. You see what I'm saying? But philosophy is not necessarily like that. I'm saying it's not so much about, okay, well, you know, I'm going to give you something where you just have no choice what to do. There's a little bit of element of choice. There's an element of, you know, you have what's called rational justification. Now, whoever was here when we talked about the 5 facts with the resurrection, they'll remember I kind of used that term, rational justification. In other words, do I have good reason to believe what I believe, or to take the stance that I'm taking on this or that particular issue? Now, if I do have good reason, if I have rational justification for my position, you know what I'm saying, then whether you agree with me or not doesn't mean that I'm wrong. Because I still have rational justification. I think what we get caught up in is when we're talking to other folks, if I can't convince you, like, no, my way is right, and I'm telling you the truth, then it's like we feel like we failed. Right. And that's simply not the case. That's simply not the case. It just means that person disagrees, doesn't understand where we're coming from, or where we're going to be, but it doesn't mean that we're wrong. And so what we have to do, we have to be comfortable in having rational justification, what it is that we hold to, and standing on it. Regardless of what anybody else says, we know that, you know, that we have good grounds for what it is that we believe or take over. You have a question or a little bit?
I have a comment.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
I have roommates that some are like they're agnostic but not really. They're admittedly angry with God, and so they refuse to. And so we've had plenty of conversations like this. I've had to take one of my electives was philosophy of religion, and so it was very tedious. But one thing I remember was that my roommate kept asking me for, like, okay, so you're a Christian, you believe in God, you've done all this, like, where's the proof? And I'm like, I can't give you proof, like I can give you examples and I can show you what I believe in, and it's up to you at that point whether you want to take that and rationalize it for yourself or what you want to do with it. But I'm like, like, essentially what I learned is that, I guess it was some metaphysical idea that nothing can be proven to exist, that nothing can be proven real or false. And so, therefore, how can I prove with certainty, like we put up there, certainty and, like, facts of that God exists? And I can't do that. No one can do that. So it takes, and that just goes with why faith is so important, because we have to believe, we have to have faith, and you know, it's our lives are proof of it as well. But it's like when you're having that conversation, I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and like tell you all these things as facts and whatever, when some of it is faith based, and you can't have proof of something.
Interesting. So, something you said there. So, I think that many times Christians are uncomfortable with philosophy because some of the jargon, the philosophical jargon, doesn't fit within the Christian framework. And here's what I mean by that. You know, the issue of certainty. And we're talking about just straight philosophy. The word certainty and proof, when you deal with philosophical debate, don't really come up for that very reason. The idea is, I don't want to get too far, but we're all fallible beings, and we can all be possibly wrong on this or that. And so when you deal with philosophical, discourse, the issue is not whether I can prove to you with 100% certainty that A, B, and C is true. The question is, can I give you, again, rational justification? Do I have good reasons for what I'm saying? Either I do or I don't. But what happens is sometimes we paint ourselves in a corner. We're just kind of casually talking to something. I use words like proof or certainty. But if I'm dealing with somebody like in a debate setting, that I never use the term proof or certainty. What I will say is, I can give you evidence as to why my position, as to why I can say that my position is true. You know what I'm saying? I think evidence is. It's a subtle distinction, but that's an important point. And I think actually the first part we said, if I understood it correctly, some of what we're going to get into will time as well that may be helpful in some of the discussions that you're having. Because while for the Christian worldview, there are plenty of evidences by which we can say we have rational justification in Christianity is true. So you might be able to share some of the evidences, with your debates in such a way that maybe they can come up with a different perspective. You look perplexed.
Nah,
you good? Or okay?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm just taking it all in.
Oh, okay. Cool. I couldn't tell if that was the face of somebody. How like somebody said something disagreeing.
You like, right. Nah. Not at all.
Sure. Okay, so right. So we want to say what we're shooting for in terms of our target, right? In answering the problem of evil, we want to present a case for which we have rational justification. That's our target, right? Now, one thing I like to tell people all the time is the truth, doesn't always make you feel good, and what makes you feel good isn't always true. Okay? So, as we're pursuing, the answer to this question, it's not necessarily going to go home and feel, man, all bubbly inside about evil or something like that. It's like evil is not the kind of thing that you feel, good about. But again, like I said, we want to have rational. So I'm not going to go through all three of these points right now. We'll probably come back to it another night because I want to get to the main argument I want to get to, and then we can kind of get a question. Like I said, I want to make sure I leave you guys. So, you doing okay on time?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. So, as we're dealing with these types of philosophical questions, okay, in order for us to say we have rational justification, there's certain kind of guidelines that we want to stay within, okay, by which we can say, yes, we have good reason to believe this or that. The first one might be that something's internally consistent, okay? Now, remember I was talking about, actually everybody might not have been here, but I was talking about worldviews a while back, right? And how basically a worldview is kind of like how it sounds. It's the lens through which you see the world, right? It's like the sum total of all your beliefs. It kind of forms how you respond to things, what you think, and so on and so forth. That's your worldview. It's like a big puzzle. I don't know if y'all can see this on camera, but these 4 squares are supposed to be a puzzle. It's like the worst puzzle. Oh, they can't see. Okay, that's cool. So these 4 squares are supposed to be a puzzle, right? And for any given worldview, the idea is that you want all the pieces of your worldview to fit together, right? Now, one thing we talked about before, we're dealing with the question of is Christianity the white man's religion, is that some people are coming to the conclusion that, based on whether it's slavery or whatever it may be, the Christianity puzzle piece doesn't fit with the African ethnicity puzzle piece. And so within their worldview, because those don't fit, they cast Christianity aside, and so therefore they choose something else. Yeah. Whether it be Hebrew Israelites, Comedics, and so on and so forth. They try to find something that fits better with that Africanity, so to speak. Well, in the same way, when it comes to the issue of, does God exist? You know what I'm saying? Or what kind of God is he if he does exist? What happens is, when it comes to the issue of there being evil in the world, people get the sense like, well, dang, if there's all this evil, then how can it be that God is real or God is good, God is all powerful, and so on and so forth? Something's not fitting there, therefore either God's got to go, either he doesn't exist, or I've got to do something else with this evil thing, and I don't know what to do with it, so I'm just going to kind of, maybe shovel it on the rug a little bit, and it becomes kind of like a stone that you shoot. It's kind of bothers you, but you don't really do. So what we want to do is we want to demonstrate how evil and God don't have to be both jettisoned out of your world. If you push the eject button or either one of them, there's a way in which you can understand the world so all the pieces fit together, okay? And they don't contradict each other. So you want to do that in a way that's internally consistent, meaning you're not contradicting yourself. So if I say that, let's say for example, if I believe that God is the type of God where nothing bad ever happens at any point in time ever, right? That's what I believe. But then I watch the evening news and I see all kind of bad, I see school shootings, so on and so forth. Well, the evidence of what's in reality is not jiving with my concept of God. So either I'm not perceiving reality correctly, or my concept of God is incorrect. You see what I'm saying? Because I've got a contradiction. So if you hold a worldview, which is that kind of contradiction, that's a red flag that something's got to change in the worldview so that it fits reality and it fits the way things are. Good? Yeah. So that's kind of internal consistency. Also, this kind of goes with it, but fits reality. When you see the evidence of how we experience life and what's going on around you, you want to have a worldview that helps you to operate in the real world in such a way that, you don't go crazy. So, if I believe that I can fly, I can leave as hard as I want to. But if I jump off a 50-story building, I will find out real quick that reality doesn't support my beliefs. You know what I'm saying? Real fast, right? So you're going to have beliefs that align with reality, and then third, you want to have some, a worldview that helps you to make sense of your experiences, right? Now, again, going back, these three kind of guidelines, any worldview that's attempting to answer these questions is going to have to answer these questions, this particular question, to where it satisfies these sorts of guidelines. I'm saying that is the question. Yes.
One question might be a little off, but what happens when someone's reality, when it doesn't fit their reality, when it fits someone else's reality? I.e., if someone grew up in a different part of town versus someone else's. And so their concept of their worldview is based on their perception of what their reality is. And so therefore they create this construct in their head that fits their reality, but if you were to move them to some other place, that same reality doesn't fit. So how does that work with religion based upon, because like if, for example,
okay,
like say if in your reality you jump off a building, you can't fly. But somebody else's, they can jump off a building and they can fly. Obviously not literally, but there's something that's possible in your realm of reality that's not possible in theirs.
Well, I guess it depends on what we mean by reality. So for example, like I said, so in the real world, wherever we go, the law of gravity exists. One way to get it. Let's say on Earth. Anywhere on Earth, the law of gravity is relatively the same. However, in America, I could start a church. I could start a business, and there's a good possibility if I work hard at it that I will succeed in that business. In a communist country or a third world country, I could start a business and work really hard, but it could be that some some warlord comes through with machetes and all that kind of stuff. He just wreck shop, ruin my business, whatever, and I don't succeed. That's just a different context. You know what I'm saying? So I think we have to establish between like what is reality, in a universal sense, and then what is reality in a contextual sense. You see what I'm saying? Something could be true within my context, and yet not true in somebody else's context necessarily. And so I think what we're going to get at here is that's a pretty good question. So I guess to kind of frame where we're going, we're more so going to be dealing with like kind of in a universal sense, those kind of truths of just the human experience. Does that make sense? Cool. Good. Maybe to the final point. Does anybody else take a shot?
The universal sense is a good terminology. That's what everybody as far as like in the world is really speak of, the universe, put stuff out the universe, I'll come back to this whole concept is people believe like the universe in itself is God.
Yeah, some people like it. And that's kind of like along the lines of pantheism, more like this kind of okay, so for today, the whole goal is, again, we want to take pressure off ourselves. The ways we talked about doing that so far, we have to recognize the different facets of the different aspects of this issue that we're tackling. Some is emotional, some is informational. And you don't want to give wrong medication, for the wrong type of symptoms, right? So, this is somewhat off, but I remember a couple of years ago, me and my wife had a situation where, there was a death in the family, right? And people come by, they feel like they have to say something. They feel like these guys, give you a word of encouragement, but sometimes it's best not to say anything. So this guy comes to me, he's like, man, you know what, man? You're gonna look back on this situation and you're gonna realize already, right? You're gonna realize it's the best thing that ever happened. What? And so he's like right here in my face, right? So I'm like, and I'm telling you, it took all the Holy Ghost I got. I had to cycle through like 20 different responses. All of which involved cussing them out. Right. To get to, I appreciate it, bro. And I just kind of like left it at that, you know what I'm saying? But, sometimes, again, you want so bad to give people information, but, it may not be necessary. Sometimes the hug is good. That, or, maybe it's good just to kind of just sit down and listen. And that can be as effective, if not more, than trying to, help somebody reason your way through something. sometimes it's not necessary. All right. Okay. Life and times are bad cool. All right. So we talked about taking the pressure off. You know, the problem with evil is everybody's question. It's not just Christian. We got to involve other people's scores just like they put it in ours, and you know, have them carry the word. We also talked about just because somebody else doesn't agree doesn't mean that we're wrong. We have rational justification for what we're affirming. Now we're going to move to our final point, at least for this evening, and I'm going to put forward the argument. There's different ways you can do it. There's different ways you can do it. There's a simple way, I think. A way in which evil, the existence of evil, is actually evidence that God does exist. I'm saying that may sound kind of strange, but just kind of follow the chain of reasoning, right?
Yeah.
So let's just follow the steps, all right? So when somebody raises a problem, they're assuming that evil exists, right? Or else they wouldn't be bringing it up. And so you start when they assume that evil exists. Now, if evil exists, then that would suggest that there's a such thing as good, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Now, if there's a such thing as good and such thing as evil, right? Good and evil exists, then that would suggest that there must be a moral law by which we can differentiate between good and evil, right? So evil exists, good exists. So in order for us to tell the difference between the two, there must be a moral law that we're perceiving by which we can tell that there's a difference between the two. So for example, if I say in example A, let's say you have a person, you know, who's taking care of a child, you know, feeding them, you know, providing all their needs, so on and so forth, right? Then you have this other person who takes an infant and for no reason just tortures them every day just for fun, right? Like we can clearly see that there's a moral difference between the person who takes care of the child and the person who, you know, is torturing the child just for fun. You know, if you can't see that difference, it's something that talk to me afterwards because there might be a problem. So, but obviously there's a moral difference between taking care of a child and torturing them for fun, right?
Yeah.
So again, you know, that's that moral law in place. If you perceive this moral law by which we can tell there's a difference between good and evil. Okay, so let's back up. So evil exists, which suggests there must be a good. If good and evil exists, that would suggest that there must be a moral law by which we can tell the difference between good and evil. Now, if there's a moral law, then that would suggest that there's a moral law given, right? There's a source of this moral law. All right, it's not just necessarily just floating around out in space, right? Now, if there's if the existence of the moral law suggests that there is a moral law giver, then I would argue that the best explanation for that moral law giver is God. Right? And that's just a basic line of reason. What we want to do is go back and kind of back what we say. Now, most of the action, so to speak, is going to occur with these two right here. Okay. If somebody's going to challenge you, they're probably going to want to attack one of these 2 points, right? Because the first three are just kind of common sense. You see what I'm saying? Now, in order for us to, how are we doing on time? How much time we got?
Yeah, that sounds good. Like 10 minutes.
Oh, cool. All right, cool. All right, so let's go over some terms right quick. Now, first of all, let's jump back up here for a second. You know, how many people would agree like this? You know, there's a real like evil is real. Like it's a real thing. I'm saying it's not something that just you say it's really in the world, right? So when you're talking about morality, you can either be talking about objective morality, or subjective morality. Now, objective morality, objective morality, we're talking about right is right, wrong is wrong, no matter what anybody says. That's an example. That's kind of what you're talking about. We're talking about objective morality. Okay. Subjective morality is more so like, oh, it's good for you, it's not good for me. You know what I'm saying? It's all relative. That's kind of subjective morality. So, for example, objective truth would be something, or objective morality would be kind of like 2 + 2 is 4. And that's, regardless of what you think about it, you know, if you say 2 + 2 is 5, then you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like 2 + 2 is 4. It's subjective, right? It's outside the person, right? Subjective morality would be kind of like, and now it's kind of like, if I say to you, vanilla ice cream is better than chocolate ice cream, right? If I disagree with you, well, we can argue about it all day long, but I can't prove to you that vanilla ice cream is better than chocolate because it's a matter of preference. It's subjective. You know what I'm saying? So when we're talking about the problem of evil, first of all, if somebody's going to bring up this problem, they're not really talking about subjective. Because if it's just a matter of opinion, then you can say, well, then it's kind of becomes funky. None of the rest of it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Generally, what we're talking about is objective evil, like real evil. You know what I'm saying? Like there's really bad stuff going on. And that's what they mean when they bring up this issue. So, Now, with that being said, that would suggest then that objective morality exists. Okay? There's a real thing of right and wrong that really exists. Now, how do you best explain it? Okay? Well, let's think about it. Make another distinction real quick. You good? Okay, so we talked about objective morality, we talked about subjective morality. Now I want to talk about this word evil a little bit more. There's two different kinds of evil that philosophers are generally talking about when they're dealing with this question. We're talking about natural evil, what we might call personal or moral. Natural evil is stuff like hurricanes, earthquakes, bad cancer, things like that. Things that it's not a person who's doing this or that, it's just bad stuff going on. That's natural. All right. Personal evil is like somebody going out and murdering somebody or doing something wrong. So those are like the types of people are dealing with. All right. Now when we deal with natural evil, what are we really saying? Right? Let's break it down. Let's say a child gets cancer, and it passes away at like age 10 or something. Like we feel like there's something really wrong about it, right? It's not the way things ought to be. That's kind of what makes it, right? Things, it ought to be the case that child grows up, flourishes, does whatever it's going to do, but it's cut short. That's not the way things ought to be. That's what strikes us as so problematic about a child with cancer. Now, when you think about that word ought to, okay, if there's a way that things ought to be, then that means that there's an intention behind it, right? Right? There can't be an intention, though, unless you have a person to intend. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So if there's a way that things ought to be in this reality that we live in, right, then that means that there is an intention of how things ought to go in reality, right? But how can you have an intention, unless you have an intended? Right. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about the moral law, or at least when we talk about natural evil, right? The very fact that people believe that things ought to be a certain way, requires then that there be a person behind it all to have that sort of intention. Like, just kind of hold on to that for a second, right? That's the natural evil side. Now we're going to talk about personal evil, okay? There's things that people should do and things that people shouldn't do, right? If I walk in here and buy, some Krispy Kreme donuts, good. If I walk in here and steal Krispy Kreme donuts, bad. We understand it, right? Now, when you think about your own moral experience, I'm saying you kind of get that gut check sometimes, like, I ought not to do this. You know what I'm saying? Or let's say that you're walking down the street and you see a homeless person getting beat up by some random folks. You feel like I ought to call the police, right? There's something that you ought to do. See, now again, that ought has come up again. And in terms of the way that you ought to behave, there's that personal morality, there's an ought. Now, in a sense, there's like this inner sense telling you something. There's a command. There's like this inner sense telling you that you should do this or that. Yeah. Now, how can you have a command without a command? Right?
Right.
How do you have instructions on what ought to be, or what you ought to do, rather, without somebody giving the instructions? Right? Let me give you an example real quick. I'll sum it up. Let's say that you're walking down the street, walking down the beach, right? And you see a pile of sticks just kind of laying. You're probably not going to pay a whole lot of attention to it, right? So you walk a little bit further, and you see a line of sticks that says, Anthony, come home right now. I've got grilled cheese sandwiches waiting for you. You know what I'm saying? You're going to determine, like, that first pile of sticks, you're not really going to think too much of it. But in that second pile, you're going to say, you're not going to be like, hey, man, you know what? It's just amazing how the water gets washed up in this little store here. Where did you get those sticks to give me this message? That's just crazy. You're not going to think that, right? Yeah. Because if there's a message, then there's probably a messenger. If there's something being told to you, it's being told to you by a person. Makes sense, right? Yeah. So in the same way, when you get this sense that somebody's telling you, or that something's telling you that you should do this, or you should do that, then a rational person would infer that where there's a message, there must be a messenger, right? So that's why we get to this fourth step right here. The fourth and the fifth step. Whether we're dealing with natural evil or whether we're dealing with personal evil, in the world, either way, what we find is intentions. What we find is that internal message telling us the things of what we should do or should not do. Both of which require a person behind it all. A person behind reality itself who's able to inject these intentions into reality. That makes sense. So that's why, given the fact that there's a moral law, that suggests that there must be a moral lawgiver. And again, my best explanation for that is a moral lawgiver is what we call God. People call it, use different words if you want. You can just say the universal intender and universal of all, so that you can do whatever. In the Christian conception, we just shorten it to G-O-D, saying it's God. Right? So again, if evil exists, then that would suggest that good exists. If good and evil exists, then that would suggest that there's a moral law by which we can differentiate between good and evil. If there's a moral law, then that would suggest that there's a moral law giver. It's got to come from somewhere. And based on the fact that when we interpret, when we think about our moral experience, how we interpret the world, we see that intention kind of hidden behind it. And we see the message, we see the messenger in terms of what we ought to do. We can then rightly infer that the best explanation for that moral law giver is God, or this person behind it all. So, in that sense, if somebody acknowledges, that evil exists, then I would argue that evil is actually an evidence for God. So, let's go back to Brother Polite for a second. You say, well, where was Jesus, during the transatlantic slave trade? Now, the underlying premise there for him is that slavery was wrong. It was something that we ought not to have to do.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Now, I would come back and say, well, that's interesting. I agree with you, slavery was jacked up. Where we might disagree is I don't think that that's actually evidence against God. I think it actually supports the fact that God exists, because the very fact that you see it as evil, you recognize it's actual evil.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And I would just walk them through. If there's evil, then there's good, there's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you can substitute anything in there. You just throw this right there. You can substitute anything in there. Whether it be why the school shooting, 9/11, whatever it may be. Once somebody acknowledges that there's real evil in the world,
walk them through.
actually give you the first step to walk them through.
Major key.
You know what I'm saying? So again,
Let's start conversation on purpose.
I know.
You say what?
Let's start conversation on purpose.
Right. I mean,
In Corey's case, arguments.
it gives you a safe way to start out these conversations.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Because what we're doing is, again, everybody's going to answer these questions. You know what I'm saying? It's not just the Christians. B, you want to have rational justification for why it is that we believe, that there is a God. You know what I'm saying? It is not, evil in the world is not evidence against God. And again, towards that rational justification, you can use this argument and say, actually, evil, once you acknowledge it, you can actually give me the first step, and I'll walk you through and show how evil is evidence for God. You had a question?
Yeah, I got a question. So wouldn't that seem like it's a little bit like say something like a school shooting that happened, and somebody would say something like, where was God during school shooting? And that day they probably like agnostic or whatever, and you try to explain like the existence of God, like they might have sometimes like that. But wouldn't that seem like kind of insensitive at the time for you to like bring up God like immediately? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not so much about bringing up God. But to your point though, I would not take this. Let's say that somebody just is really emotional and their school shooting jacked up. Maybe they lost somebody. If they are obviously grappling on an emotional level with something like this, let's say the school shooting, let's just stay with that. Then I'm not gonna be like, hey man, you know what? You just acknowledge that evil exists, and if evil exists, I'm not gonna do it.
Take them to everything.
I'm gonna kind of size them up, and that's where conversational skills. Matter of fact, boom. I bring this up all the time, man. It's one of my top 3 books right here in Apologetics. The book Tactics by my man Greg Copeland, who also appeared as a guest on the Tru-ID podcast, which you can check out. Shameless plug at TRUIDpodcast.com, available on iTunes. So Greg Copeland, he actually breaks down how to be conversational in your apologetics. Okay, yeah. Actually, while I'm at it, I'll just throw this out too. We also have a book by a guy named Frank Turek. Frank Turek, I don't know how to pronounce it, but from Turek, Frank Turek. And he's got a book called Stealing from God. He's got a whole chapter on pretty much just what I just went over. So that's good. And my man, William Lane Craig, he's got a book called On Guard. Where he deals with the same type of things. Actually, some of the stuff we'll get into next week, but to your question though, again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, how there's different medications for different aspects of this problem. I'm saying if somebody's really grappling emotionally, then I may not want to go into it right now. I might just want to sit down and just listen to the person, and then I might just want to ask, is this something that you want to have a conversation about? I can give you the biblical perspective as to how these things fit together. Is this something that you really want to talk about? And if they say no, then it just might be the wrong time. You say, let me know when you want to talk about it, you know. But then there might be other cases where, let's say that maybe somebody sees the issue on the news, sees the school shooting on the news. They may not necessarily be like emotionally torn up about it, but it's like, dang, that's messed up. And they may just have some real questions, right? Now, again, what I'm going to say is, hey, you know, have a conversation about it. I'm not just going to blurt it out. So I'm just going to open the door. And if they're willing to have a conversation about it, then we can kind of work our way through. You know, and so again, you know, if they have a different worldview, then I'll say, okay, well, you know, if you disagree with me, I'd be interested to hear your perspective. You know, what do you think accounts for evil and positive? Now, so for example, I'll just real quick. All right, so for example, talked about, actually it could be either one. Yeah, let's talk about Hinduism, for example. Some forms of Hinduism, the way that they try to resolve the problem is to say that evil is just an illusion. As a matter of fact, everything is an illusion. You're an illusion, I'm an illusion, evil is just an illusion, right? That's the way that they try to resolve the problem of evil. Now, then we can ask ourselves, does that really fit with reality? Saying, like, if you ever lost a loved one, I'll be personal. For example, in January last year, I lost my dad. You know what I'm saying? And this is obviously the type of issue I had to really grapple with. You know what I'm saying? Like, my dad passed away, he was a vegan, he exercised every day. I mean, you know, he was just a very healthy guy, he was in the Word, the whole nine. And like that, you know what I'm saying, he was gone, right? Now, if somebody comes to me and says that, you know what, Adam, you know, you're not really experiencing pain here, it's just all an illusion.
Right.
It's like, you know, my
I
dad,
feel this.
You see what I'm saying? My dad was not an illusion. The pain of loss that I feel from him not being here is not an illusion. So that solution doesn't fit with reality. I'm saying, also, we were talking about between natural and evil. I'll say I count that situation as natural, you know, versus moral. You know, I work in the mental health field. I know people and have worked with people who have had loved ones killed. You know, and I'm sure you have worked in mental health. I'm saying people have been killed, shot, whatever, in the inner city, so on and so forth. I'm not going to go to that person and counsel and be like, yeah, you know, you believe that that person was killed or murdered or shot and murdered, but it's really just an illusion. And all the pain that you feel, the person didn't really exist, you know, that whole thing. It doesn't align with reality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it doesn't give a good answer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? So my whole point is everybody's got to answer this question. I'm going to present, you know, the biblical world. And if they have calls with it, like I said, it's a back and forth. We can have a conversation. I want to hear their perspective. And to end it out with this, we're talking about apologetics just in general, okay? Apologetics is not just about answering questions. It's about helping people to think through their questions. See what I'm saying? That's a big piece of it. And so if somebody's grappling with the problem of evil, and they may have an answer that doesn't quite work, and so that's why they don't really have any peace over it, you know what I'm saying? Then my goal is I want to come alongside you, and I want to help you think through this problem, help you think through these questions. See what I'm saying?
Word. Well, one time for my man Adam. Appreciate you as always. Any questions, comments, concerns?